Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome to The Well, your source for the latest in the field of after school and summer learning programs. Today, we have a very special guest with us in Michael Funk, Director of the Expanded Learning Division at the California Department of Education. Hey, what's up, Michael?
How you doing, Bruno?
Good, good. It's so great to have you here. I love these segments. This segment is being done in partnership with Frank Escobar and the Facebook page called Strive. So all of that information will be in the description below for you to join that conversation in the Facebook Strive page with our colleague Frank Escobar. But what's in everybody's mind around the field of expanded learning is this idea or questions that people have around the budget, specifically 21st century funding. About a month and a half ago, President Trump put out his proposed budget, cutting 21st century funding that's right now at $1.2 billion for
Right.
21st century community learning centers around the country. There were some great grassroots efforts, both locally and nationally, and we saved after school for fiscal year 17. But this new proposed budget has just come out last week, where it slashes completely 21st century funding again for the year 2018. And everybody wants to know, Michael, hearing it from you, what is going on with these budget proposals? How do we save after school?
Well, if I could tell you in 3 minutes how to save after school, I would have a different job probably. But let's just start, Bruno, by acknowledging that this is complicated, and I think what one of the reasons I really appreciate this opportunity is because when the average person on the street hears the president's going to cut 21st century, we've got people all across the state whose anxiety level goes up. Am I going to have a job? What's going to happen? Because what they hear is after school. After school is not effective anymore. There was a statement yesterday when they were talking about the president's fiscal year 18 budget, when people asked about 21st century, and there was a dismissive comment that says they don't have their attendance numbers. No one knows what that means.
Right.
And then they moved on. But what I'd like to do is try to bring first of all, some facts into the picture about what does fiscal year 17 budget mean. So last week, when the Congress passed what's called the omnibus bill, which is, bottom line is that the federal government hadn't determined how much money the federal government could spend
Right.
from the nation's treasury through the end of September 2017. And so there had to be a bill or the federal government would close down. So that's what that was about. And fiscal year 17 starts in October 1 of 2016 and ends on September 30th, 2017. What's often confusing, though, is that budget, fiscal year 17, determines what money the states have to spend in our school year 17-18. So that's where the confusion comes in. Wait a minute, we just got an increase and now the president wants to zero it out for 18.
Right.
Does that mean we're not going to have any money in 2017-18? So the best way to remember this is when you hear fiscal year 18 or the fiscal year blank, federal year, the federal fiscal year 17, just think that school year 17-18. So take the number on the end of fiscal year.
Right.
That's the first year of the school fiscal year. So what does that mean? So that means that it's very ironic that the Congress voted to increase 21st century nationally by 25 million. I just got the email yesterday from the state budget office that said that basically means California for the school year 17-18 will get an additional $4 million of 21st century. Now, we were told to expect a cut
Right.
for fiscal year 17, and we got the opposite. So now what happens with that $4 million? We still haven't got the official letter from the feds. and will we be able to fund even more 21st century from cohort 10 application? We're not sure yet, but it's the alternative. If we would have received a cut last week, we would have not been able to fund everybody that went through the last competitive process. We're
Right.
just a few days away now, maybe a week from publishing a final list of those that we intend to fund. We held some money back for appeals and different things, and now we're working on a final list. So good news, fiscal year 17, school year 17, 18, good news. And why that's good news is because when the president's budget director, Mulvaney, said after school programs have no impact, we're going to zero out this program, there was a flood of calls from around the country.
Right.
We ourselves gathered information on the impact evaluations from large districts in California. And what I don't think we often realize in California is for other states, the only thing they have for after school in public funds is 21st century, and especially the red states. And they love 21st century. And when they heard the same thing, they were calling and emailing their congresspersons. And that's why we have such a bipartisan, strong support for this.
So
However,
Michael, the
yeah,
confusion here in California, as I'm going out and doing coaching with sites and learning communities, is when somebody says on the news, after school is going away, we need to save after school. Can you give us your distinction of ACEs, or after school education and safety funding, and how that doesn't or does relate to this 21st century community learning center's proposed cut?
yes. So we have, and one of the confusing things is we have kind of a crisis in ACEs for funding, as well as this threat to 21st century. So let me just finish 21st century by saying the president's budget came out yesterday for fiscal year 18, which proposes to zero out 21st century. That's going to be a battle that goes on for months and months, but we have to do everything we can. And you can track Facebook and other outlets to know what you can do as a site lead or as a stakeholder in this work to communicate to your Congress members and their staff. In California is unique in that we have this very large amount of money for after school education safety, otherwise known as ACEs. And we have 21st century, the largest allocation in the country. The distinction is when the feds said we're going to send 21st century money to the states for the states to administrate in 2002, there was a decision to basically mirror the 21st century in the ACES program. The big difference is that half of the 21st century money goes to high schools in the assets program. But bottom line is, many of our programs have both ACES and 21st century, and it runs the same program. They're two different sources. It basically funds the same program. But 21st century is a competitive 5-year grant, and it can go away. And in fact, many programs are going to close that were not successful in this round of funding because we were only able to fund about 15+% of those programs that applied. ACES, on the other hand, was intentionally designed to be renewable every 3 years. And the only way you can lose ACES funding is to not meet your attendance goals, and that results in a reduction. The problem with ACES, the crisis with ACES, is that the $7.50 per child rate hasn't changed since 2006. Now, in contrast, the middle school initiative launched by New York City 2 years ago funds $14.50 per child per day. So we're fighting tooth and nail in the state legislature to get this rate this year increased to $9 per child per day. And good news, just yesterday in the Assembly Education Committee, they put that much money in the budget. It's a little bit complicated about where they're going to get it from.
Right.
The Senate put far less, but now next week, the Senate and the Assembly have to come together and compare their two different budgets and come up with a number. Then it has to go to the governor and be signed. But we are more optimistic than we've been in 3 years that we might actually get an increase in the ACES fund. And just to be really clear, what that means for the state funding is not more funding for more schools or more kids in this case. It's more funding to increase the daily rate. And we hope that will really give some relief to program sites to be able
Right.
to offer a little bit more competitive wage, to be able to hire and, support our site leads, which are, the backbone, literal backbone of this whole system.
Yeah.
Uh, so site leads, thank you for all you're doing, your amazing work. We're fighting, Bruno's fighting, advocates across the state are fighting really hard to try to give you additional support for your programs financially.
So, Michael, thank you for that. And our site leads and site coordinators are the backbone of our after school and summer learning programs. And I talk to them all the time when I'm out in the field. And there's this big assumption that there's someone else fighting that fight, that there's someone else that takes care of policy, that takes care of fundraising. And they always ask me, who am I to create change at my site? Who am I to advocate? And what I always tell them is, it starts with how we champion our program every day with our students, with our families, with our school principal, our school administrators, and others on what is so great about our after school and summer learning programs, because it is those parents who talk to principals, those parents who show up to school board meetings that make all the difference sometimes in these local
Yep.
school districts. So what can you tell us about the responsibility that I think we all have to champion for after school and summer learning programs, not just some organization? It takes all of us.
Let me just say it this way. If you're a site coordinator and you're listening to this, or you're a staff person at an after school program, or you're even a program director for a district who supervises site coordinators, if you and I'm the director of expanded learning for the state. If both of us walked in to an assembly member's office or a senator's office, they are not going to listen to me. They want to hear from you. They, especially if you're in their district. You have the power. Go to your local. Now, if you went to a senator's desk office and the senator was somewhere across the state from you, that's not going to be effective. But find your local elected person. They want to hear from you. They will listen to you. And all of us folks who get paid to do policy and administrative work, the advocates out there, they know that's exactly what we do. That's our job. But they know that's not your job, and your voice is authentic, and it's really important.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Michael. And one of the things that I always sometimes get disillusioned with is that when that proposed budget 17 came out, we saw a flurry of social media posts, Facebook, Twitter, and others, and then the news broke that it was saved. And all of a sudden, that flurry of highlighting what we do best in our programs kind of slowed down until this next round of the budget proposal was announced. And so, do we need to do this every time this proposed budget comes out, or do we need to do this throughout the entire year? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's easy to get complacent because your work is hard and you're busy. You don't have enough hours in the day. And so, you've got the crisis of one of your staff didn't show up and you're figuring out how to cover that club or that class, or two staff didn't show up, or you've got some child who got injured on the playground. I mean, and you're going to make it. Which problem do I have to solve now? Do I have to solve the national funding of after school problem, or do I have to make sure this child is safe?
Right.
You make the right decision to make the child is safe. But Bruno, this does need to be a year-round effort of communicating the impact and quality of our programs. I've always said in the 20-some years that I ran a nonprofit and I ran programs in California and faced an annual battle for the budget in the city and county of San Francisco, I always told my team the best defense against a budget cut is a good offense. Make sure you're overperforming. Make sure your program is high quality. So don't do advocacy to sacrifice quality. But when you nail quality, you can find ways to tell your story with social media in ways that's quick and efficient that will be very powerful.
Yep. And just even using sign out, that opportunity to speak to parents every single day about what their child did best that day or what we're doing as a program that's so good. is an opportunity for them to speak their voice and to highlight their program. One last question for you, Michael, because still a lot of people haven't heard that you actually roll out some data at the Boost conference last month, and the impact that we have in California to support that many young people each and every day. So could you give us a sense from what you reported at Boost and now the data that you have? What kind of numbers are we dealing with when we talk about the expanded learning field in California?
Yeah, it's over 800, almost 860,000 children served annually, uh, over 500,000 daily.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really impressive work, impressive scale. And I think that, and then when you look at the type of children that we serve a very high percentage of children who are of low income families
Yes.
that qualify for free reduced meals. We serve 600,000 of our participants are Latino.
Yes.
And we serve the children that, number one, we serve the future of this state, which are these kids.
Yes.
And we serve the children that really need the services the most in terms of the low income families. And we'll be releasing this data in different forms, in different ways. And this data, snapshots of this can be seen on the California Afterschool Network's State of the State for California. But we we have data to demonstrate, the large number of English learners we serve,
Mm-hmm.
the number of kids in foster care.
Mm-hmm.
So if you ever get to a place, there are places, we will be posting this at some point and getting the word out through the California After School Network and through Strive and
Mm-hmm.
through Bruno here and his work. So stay tuned.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael. The impact that we make in communities every day is huge. And so as our site leads and site coordinators are finishing off the year, a lot of them are ending school tomorrow or the next day or next week. Any last words that you want to tell our line staff and site coordinators as they end their school year this year?
Just thank you. You guys are changing lives. And you're probably exhausted. You're probably looking forward to a break, or maybe you're scrambling to prepare for summer, run summer programs. But either way, know that the investment that you've made this year has changed lives. I guarantee it. There are times when you're just doing your best, and a lot of times that middle school child really doesn't have the capacity
Right.
to put into words what you've meant to them. And then all of a sudden, 10 years from now, you'll run into that kid uh, at a restaurant or at the mall, and they'll tell you, "You've changed my life. You made a difference for me. Trust me, that is happening." So thank you for all you do.
It's true. Thank you, Michael. And we're hearing that from staff as well. The expanded learning field as a place that changes their lives.
Yes.
So again, Michael, thank you again for all that you do, all the work that you're doing at the Department of Education with your team and with our partners statewide, regionally, and locally to support the massive movement that is expanded learning. And so until next time,
Thank you, Bruno.
thank you.